when we look at 19th century Bengal, and I think nobody in India can deny the positive influence of the movement, the Brahmo Samaj movement. If we say that 100 years later today, we are trying to revive a certain sense of our Indic identity, I, for one, do not understand looking at the heroes of those times with today's context. Do you think that, to me, it seems like the context is completely lost when we are trying to re-evaluate our heroes? So what is your take on this sort of looking back and...
See, we don't live in those times.
Correct.
We can't even imagine what it meant to live in those times. We who live in urban India, Hindus in urban India, or even upwardly mobile B towns, we can't imagine what it meant that women cannot come out of their homes. That Hindu women had to wear ghungat, which had to reach their knees. That Hindu women were forbidden to speak to non-relatives and outsiders. That even within the house they were not allowed to come into the baitak, which was the male domain. And if you look back to those times, every effort to chisel away at orthodoxy had its own impact. Jagdish Chandra Bose was a Brahmo Samaji.
Yes.
There were other Surendranath, others. The whole thing. Their science was driven by their sense of religion, by the precepts of Brahmoism, and there were writers, there were musicians, and it's very strange. People talk of Hindutva, origin of Hindutva as Savarkar's treatise, that it's the origin. That is not quite true. You have to go back to the surge in the Brahmo spirit, especially after Debendranath Tagore. He again retakes it, and then later Rabindra Tagore takes charge of it and infuses it with a more embracing, more open-minded Hinduism. And there is a surge. Almost 300 Brahmo Samajas, organized units are formed around Bengal and beyond Bengal. They send in Karachi when they read about it in their papers. And the Sindhis, they send two young men. They collect money and they send two young men to go to Calcutta and find out what is this Brahmo Samaj all about and come back and tell us. Those two men travel all the way to Calcutta and they are so enamored of it that not 1 year, they stay back for a couple of years and then they come back and then they say this. A Brahmo Samaj is then set up in Sindh. And Sardar Dayal Singh, one of the richest Sikhs, and he didn't become rich because of any largesse by the British Empire or something. He was a businessman. He used to trade in jewelry and stones, things like that, and real estate. And he, in those days, he would write out checks worth lakhs of rupees for charity. So when Dayal Singh hears about Brahmo Samaj, he's a Sikh, a practicing Sikh. He goes, he finds out more and he embraces. He says, I am a Brahmo Samaji. Without giving up his Sikh identity. It's not that he gives up his turban or his beard or something, and then he endows money because of the Samaj's whole thrust on education, women's empowerment. He sets aside money to set up a college. Then subsequently that college comes up in Delhi, the Dayal Singh College. And I had once gone to give a lecture over there, and then I asked the teachers and the students, are you aware of this? They said no. So a lot of obliteration, purposeful obliteration has also happened.
In fact, that was one of my questions, because the India that we enjoy today, the rights of women that we enjoy today, in fact the ameliorations of even our child marriage laws, inheritance laws, I think the first lady doctor also was a Brahmo Samaj.
Yeah.
So all of that, today looking back, we are condemning a movement, we are bringing down a hero, but all of us, pan India, were actually enjoying the fruits of the emancipation that movement gave us.
It triggered it. Then you asked me about some other
the
question.
subsequent splits, like what were the mutations of the movement, and if you can
So you see, in its own way, and very strangely, over a period of time, the Brahmo Samaj under Debendranath Tagore's guidance also started becoming very conservative. That conservative in the sense you could not have divergent views, you could not move away from the written code of it. And those who sort of subscribed to it, they became the dominant force in the Samaj. And the impact of that was long lasting. I have relatives in Shanti Niketan who settled down over there, and they lived their lives like that, and they left behind a whole lot of money. And in their wills they mentioned it shall go to X, only if X does this, it will go to Y. Supposing X is a male person, so it will say only if X takes up a particular kind of education and a job, and etc., then only that he shall be entitled to this money. Or if it's Y who's a woman, that only if she marries a Brahmo who is a practicing Brahmo, who follows the precepts, shall be entitled to. So there was, in its own way, it became a very conservative society, and in many ways inelastic. Now, Keshab Chandra Sen, he enters as a very rejuvenating force, a young, dynamic person bubbling with ideas, and he wins over with his charm the conservative elements who sort of hand over the Samaj to him. But Keshab Chandra Sen, he made two fatal mistakes. One, he thought that Brahmo Samaj is not a missionary religious movement, which he felt it should become.
Okay.
And for that, he started taking a lot of inspiration from the church in its missionary zeal. And he started veering towards the church, the Trinitarian church, for this. And then he comes up with his Navovidhan, which is the new doctrine, and from that flows his vision of a new universal religion. The other thing he does is that he marries his elder daughter to the ruler of Coochbehar, and it was a violation of the Brahmo Marriage Act because she was a minor, 8 years or 10 years old or something. And in those days, that was a huge, huge scandal. That someone who preaches this actually goes ahead and does that. And Keshav's own followers, young men and women, the very charged up section of Brahmo Samaj, they revolt against him. And Debendranath Tagore then steps in and he takes back the Samaj from Keshab Chandra Sen. And that actually is the second split. There was a minor split the first time round, but this was a big split, and the Samaj split into two factions: the Adi Brahmo Samaj, which was the conservative faction, and the Sadharan Brahmo Samaj, which was the liberal faction. Both were minus Keshab Chandra Sen. Keshab Chandra Sen then disappears. He becomes inconsequential.